Good morning, everyone. Gosh, it is a stunning day today. So, welcome to episode 4 of Ask the Expert. Today, we are going to be joined by someone that I'm so excited to have on. So, we have Dr. Kathryn, who has just joined. So, let me just have a look. So, oh, here she is. Hi, Kathryn. How are you?
Hi, Angelique. I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, good. So, Kathryn is from Courageous Kids app. That is her business. And I am so excited about today because some of you may not know that I'm a primary school teacher as well. So I think today you're going to get a bit of a double whammy of experts and experience because as a primary school teacher of the junior year levels and also a mum, this is something I'm super, super passionate about. So thank you so much for coming on. So I would love to just get you to introduce yourself quickly. So who are you? Do you have kids? And just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Angelique. So I'm Kathryn. It's lovely to be here. I'm a mum. My day job is I'm a doctor. But because I've got a bit of an anxious eldest and drop-offs when he was quite little were really tough, I've now made, I've now made Courageous Kids, which is a platform for other parents to be able to support their kids through anxious moments.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think today's going to be a really great chat because you've obviously got experience. My youngest, my third, she had a lot of social anxiety, which for a third child we weren't expecting. We thought she'd be the most robust out of them all. So I think today will be so great to share our experiences and what actually helped. And I think something that people find so overwhelming is knowing kind of what to do and who to go and see, because we're living in a time of the highest anxiety in kids, and a lot of that is due to social media, our access to the news. You know, we hear everything straight away. And our kids are probably the most anxious they've ever been. So parents are wanting tools and wanting to help their kids, but often I think it's overwhelming. They don't know who to go and see for their child, what to do themselves, which expert to pick, because there are so many out there. So I'm excited today that we're going to be able to actually give parents some really practical things they can do straight away that are going to help their kids.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so just to go back on the point that you made, so the Australian data is that 1 in 9 children has anxiety, and that's children aged 5 to 14. The data in under 5s is actually quite hard to come by. And anxiety is the greatest health burden in girls and second greatest after asthma in boys. So we're seeing it, and we're seeing it in young kids. And you know, as a parent, I know as a parent, it's really painful to watch your child suffer, let alone how awful it is for the child themselves. So that's anxiety as in, then we've got to look at what's just a worry and what's anxiety. So I would say that the anxiety that you're talking about, where you might need to see an expert, is where it's pervasive. It's preventing your child from doing the activities that they would usually enjoy. It's really having that negative impact on your life. Whereas everyday worries, garden variety worries, you know, we've got to tackle that ourselves at home. They're real, and it's a skill as a parent to be able to help your kids through those worries and build their resilience. I think, thank goodness, gone are the days of sink or swim, suck it up, you'll be right, mate. All those messages that some of us might have had when we were kids. And particularly, I think dads got maybe even more than mums as kids. So it's like, how do we empower parents to have the right words, to talk to their kids and go through things together to build their kids' confidence? I think that's one side. And then the other side is when it's bigger than that, when you're not able to tackle it on your own at home, where do you go next? And that is professional help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is key as well. Sometimes we use that word anxiety, but what we mean is
Oh, isn't
worries
it?
or concerns. Yeah. So I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think the, 1 in 9 have anxiety, but oh my goodness, imagine what the data is of how many kids have worries. I think, it would be almost
Well, it's a normal emotion, isn't it?
100%, because
Big,
yeah, we
sad
all
worry.
do.
We all do.
Yeah,
We all
absolutely.
do.
And I think sometimes it can be isolated too. Like I've got a son who's, I wouldn't say has, isn't nervous or has not got anxiety, but there's been times in his life where he has been worried about something. So even if your child isn't necessarily a worrier, these tools that we're going to be talking about are so great to have in your toolbox as a parent for those times that it does come up, because at some point there will be a time where your child is worried about something. So it's so great to arm ourselves.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
starting school, starting preschool, going to the dentist, any unfamiliar environment, or when your child is going to be with someone that's not mum and dad looking after
Yeah.
them, why wouldn't they be concerned? No one wants to hang out with a stranger. I don't like starting a
Yeah.
new job. It's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often, my daughter's teacher's really great at that too. She, like, a lot of people are kind of like, come on, you'll be right, and still do that. But she's like, but imagine as an adult, imagine if you went to a party and you were the only one, you didn't know anyone, you would feel nervous. A lot of us just wouldn't go. So we have to imagine what that must be like in a child's brain and mind who is still learning all these things when
Totally.
we as adults often can't deal with
I
them
know,
as
but
effectively.
different expectations that kids are, there's this, I think it's a misconception. Kids are robust, kids are resilient, kids are tough. And it's true, but they're all those things with support. And
Yeah,
take away those supports and it just falls away. So yes, kids can be incredibly resilient, but they still need age appropriate tools to help them be resilient.
absolutely. And it's just like at the moment, my son is just going through something with his football team. On the weekend, they played in a final and he wasn't playing as much as he liked. He was on the bench for a bit of it. And my husband and I had two choices. Part of me was like burning inside and wanted to be like, that's not fair. My son should be playing. But we're like, we can't actually control that situation. But what we can control is how we respond. So we decided to speak to our son and talk about, well, how can you handle this situation? How are you going to respond? Because we thought it's so important that we give him those tools, because life is full of injustice, rejection. These
Disappointment.
things are going to happen in life, So we thought we're better off giving him some tools and helping to guide him so he can deal with it. And it's not going to knock him down. And, for later on when those things happen again. So I think sometimes it's really important that, yes, they are robust, but as you said, we need to be supporting and guiding them so they can become robust and resilient in the
Very
future.
wise. I mean, I think kids can handle a lot. We just need to guide them through and name those feelings. That is so disappointing. You might be angry about it. It's okay to feel all those things and let's talk them through.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned separation, and I think that that's probably one of the most common worries that our kids
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
whether, like you said, it's at drop-off, kinder, school, starting all those new things. And even for people watching whose child hasn't got to drop-offs yet, these are going to be such incredible tools for them for when that day does come. So talk to us a bit about separation anxiety. So how can we help kids that might be a bit nervous about a new transition?
Yeah. So the word transition is just a change from one activity to another, or like the transition to school is starting school, basically. And it's a process. It's not just a one-off event. It's not that 5 minutes of the first, drop off at that new place. And it's about building, and the important part of a transition is making sure that your child feels safe and comfortable. And part of that, of course, is physically what's in their new environment, but the really important part is emotionally. How do they feel safe and secure and comfortable with a new grown-up who is going to look after them? And so what you want to do is, wherever you can, find and build moments of connection between your child and whoever's going to be looking after them, so that they feel comfortable with that person and they feel that they're going to be safe and secure with that person. And of course, there are some kids who run in on their first day and are like, I'm home, like, this is cool, I'm fine. But that really is the minority. most kids are shy, going to be a little bit slow to warm up in a new environment, and there are going to be a smaller set of kids who really find that very tricky and just aren't ready for their mum or dad to leave. And I think in the younger years, it's more common that it's okay for a parent to stay for a little bit. Some places have like a stay and play day, which is invaluable. And others, I think it sort of depends on the teacher as well. They'll see if your child's a bit nervous or needs you for a bit longer. And what I did for my eldest was I just stayed the first few days. I think it was like, you know, you don't go every day. So it might have ended up being a couple of weeks that I'd stay for a bit, and then I'd leave for a bit and leave him for a short time, and then we lengthened it out, and then I was good to go. And I think in that process, it's really important not to put pressure on the child, but for the teacher and parent to agree between themselves that it's going to be okay and child-led. And there comes a point when you take the pressure off that your kid will say to you, it's okay now, or, you know, or you feel that it's okay to ask. As they get older, that gets trickier. You can't really do that at school. And so that's where preparing your child in advance becomes really, really important. And you can do it in advance. And that's where tools like social stories come in. Or, you know, you've got the orientation days. So on those days, if you can take a photo of your child with their new teacher so that you can start looking at the photo of their teacher, talking about their teacher, remembering parts about their teacher, maybe their teacher and them did something nice together, really building on that to get as much familiarity as you can, even before they step in for their first day, makes a world of difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest to that. And as a teacher, that's something that I would do for the kids in my classroom that were struggling. But I also did it with my daughter. So when she was about to start, it was like a kinder, she was extremely nervous about it. So I had photos of all the teachers she would be seeing, the toilets, the room, the outside, what it looked like, and just in a Word document, put it in some photo on the Word document. But the other thing that I did, we named things like, these are the toilets, this is my outside area, but I would also throw in some really positive language. Like I would say, this is my teacher, she's here to help me, or this is where we play, we will have so much fun, or, you know, whatever it is. And we really tried to build in some positive language, and we would read it with my daughter every single night before she went to bed. But before she started, this was like,
so,
you know,
Angela, you have inside info that as a garden variety regular parent I didn't have. You basically made your child what we call a social story or a social script. And that is a story, I'll just give a little bit of background.
Yep.
The official term social story was coined by Carol Gray in America in the 90s. And she used that she was at a special, we're not allowed to use, what's the right terminology? She was at a school for autistic kids.
Yeah.
And one of the tools that she used to impart information was giving it in story form. And so a social story is a story that conveys a skill or an idea in story form, usually written from the first person. So, you know, my name is Kathryn, I am 12 years old, blah, blah, blah. And goes on. And that's basically what you did for your child. So, and that's what I do for my kids. But I had to learn it the hard way, Angelique. I had to discover that these social stories, this is a common tool now used by child psychologists, speech pathologists, and occupational therapists. And it's one of the tools in their toolkit, there are many, to ease anxiety. And so I did that for my kiddos, both of them, my, you know, everyday warrior and my major warrior. And it was amazing, just like you. So I had a Word document, I write a story about what's going to happen starting school. I think it's important with these stories to keep them quite short. So I just kept one idea per story.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in starting school. So actually I ended up, it blew out to 5 stories. And again, I had a Word document, I took photos, we named it all. I would try and I'd kept it positive like you about teachers, you know, he has a big smile, or, you know, she's really good at art. But I would never put in words like she's always friendly, because a teacher might get angry one day. Like, that's your perception, and you can't promise how another person will be, but you can say things about them. My mum says she's really friendly, is very different to she's really friendly. So the nuance is quite important in these stories. But you're absolutely right. And so So the stories were super successful. So on my kid's first day at school, this child who had found what we call kindergarten, other people call it preschool, you know, where he went when he was 3 and 4, he found those drop-offs hard. But by the time school came, he was still only 4. We did all the stories over the summer holidays. Like you, I took photos of everyone, so he knew the people as well as the place and the playground.
Yeah.
And on his first day, he crept up to me. There were, honestly, this class was small. There was 18 kids. 4 of them were crying, holding on to their parents. My kid creeps over to me, and I thought, oh, the tears are going to start. And he crept up and he whispered, "You can go now, Mum."
No.
So preparation is everything.
Yeah,
it's everything.
absolutely.
Because he felt comfortable. He knew who his teacher was, and we'd gone over it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. What a success story. That's so beautiful. And I think the social stories are, like you said, they're so powerful, but it's also one of these little secrets that you're unlocking. And like you said, I take for granted that I already knew that being a teacher, but this is something experts will get you to do. So we're letting you in on a bit of a secret that this is something that you can do yourself at home. And I think with social stories,
science, is it, Angelique? It's not rocket science.
And
So
I'm sure when people listening,
success, tell them what to expect in advance. It's not that hard.
Exactly.
And yet the idea of putting it in a story, I had to hear it from someone else.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well with social stories, you can create them at any time that something comes up. It doesn't just have to be for the beginning of something. Once your child's at school, if you're finding what they're struggling with is what to do on the playground when they can't find their friends.
Yeah.
Make a social story about it.
God. When my youngest, who is Mr. Sociable, was at 3-year-old kinder, there was a girl and he was playing with her in the sandpit, and she left. She said she was going to go and find a friend and come back, and she never came back. And he said, and I was waiting, but she never came. And I said, do you want to make a story about when I'm lonely at kinder? And he said, yeah. So we went home and we made a story about when I'm lonely. Yeah. And we printed it out, and he was so proud of it. He wanted to take it in the next day.
Yeah.
It's powerful for kids to own their own stories and be the hero of their own stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Definitely being the hero. But also, you know, there are lots of books out there already, but they're not specific to your child and your child's school. So there might be a specific place children can actually go if they're lonely. That's not going to be in a general book that you buy from the bookshop. So you can actually make it so specific to your child. Like at our school, we've got a friends bench where kids can go and sit on a bench if they're feeling a bit lonely, so that other kids know that child needs someone. Things like that, you could take a photo of that and say, when I'm lonely, I can go and sit on the friends bench, or whatever it is, but so that it's really specific to your child. And you can even name names, like if there's specific teachers or something that they can do. And it, like you said, the kids feel ownership over it, saying it's familiar, it's their school, it's them. You can put photos of them. So it is so, so powerful.
I think personalization is everything. So in the starting school story, we had a class list. So I'd change the names every few days. You know, in my class will be Millie and Emma and Tom. And then I change it. So there was a bit of familiarity with even the names of the other kids in the class before they started. And same. And there's another story that I've used that I found helpful for my kids, playtime at preschool, just talking about how you join in the play, what it's like. Because, you know, these kids come from being at home most of the time and just playing with people they know. So it can be hard to join in. Yeah. And just acknowledging it can be hard. And this is how you do it. Yep. And just calling it out is helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one tool that you can already just at home do yourself. If you're not overly, you know, don't have time, or you're not overly creative, or you don't really know where to start, and I know that you didn't want to just talk about your app, but this is what your app is for. So you can actually go on Kathryn's app and there's templates. You can personalize it, put all your stuff in. And I think it's a really great, especially kids who have iPads or do a lot of their, you know, a lot of people have reading eggs and things like that on their iPad. So if your child is someone who does love the iPad, or you know, that's familiar to them, then your app is amazing for that, because they can have their very own story on their iPad ready to go.
So for parents, so You can absolutely do this in Microsoft Word, and believe me, I've done a lot of them in Microsoft Word. But the other thing is, I don't really have time for an art and craft project. And sometimes the other thing is, when your child needs that story, I don't know how long it takes you, Angelique, but to write a story often took me an hour. Sometimes
Yeah.
more.
Oh,
You have to go
yeah.
and find the photos or get the right ones from Google. It was
Yeah.
really time consuming. And sometimes you've got a small window when your child is receptive and you need that
Mm,
story now. And sometimes I'd make a story, and by the time I was ready to read it, the moment had passed.
yeah.
So, so I had all these stories in Microsoft Word, and then I started changing them for my friends and their kids. And then it was just really hard. And that's why I put it in app form. So when you
Yeah.
first download the app, you choose a character for yourself and your partner and your child or grandma or whoever else is in your child's orbit. And that means that all the illustrations come customized in each story for your child. And then you can add in their teachers and their teachers' names. And then you can swap out the characters you've chosen and the kind of graphic illustrations for your own photographs to go really solid if you've got a photo of a
Yeah.
teacher.
Beautiful.
And so that means that you can make a story in 2 minutes instead of
Yeah.
2 hours. So
Exactly.
done.
Exactly.
Another thing is, if you don't have an iPad or you don't want your kid on the iPad or phone, you can print them all out.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
after you make the story, you just go to the edit button in the top right corner, click on print it out. Your child doesn't even need to see a screen. Done.
Oh, that's so good. And I think the good thing about that is too, you can be making it together while they're there. Whereas
Yeah.
when you're doing the Word version, you've got to kind of drag it in, you've got to go print it out,
Boring.
cut it out,
No.
stick it, and it's a bit disjointed. So at least if you're doing it together on the iPad, you're there at the one time, and then like you said, you can still
Yeah.
print it and have it as a hard copy,
Yeah.
but at least that making together is not so disjointed.
Yeah. I think what kids enjoy is choosing a character for themselves and a
Totally.
character for mum and dad. Might be surprised what they think you look like.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and then the stories come preloaded with those characters.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And another tool I just wanted to
Yes.
touch on
There's
because
so
it's something
many
that
tools.
I've used. Oh my gosh, so many. But these are the two that I have used for my daughter. So she's now 7. She was 3.5 when she started like a kinder kind of thing. She had really extreme social anxiety where she would be so nervous when other kids would come near her. So she would just freeze. So the thing that she found so difficult was if she was going to move from that table to that table, who would she encounter along the way? And that was her fear. And so there was a time when she was standing at a station playing with, it was actually cornflakes in a box and you find these little animals. And another girl came next to her. So she just froze. And then the girl started putting cornflakes on Ivy's hand. And in Ivy's head, she was just thinking, why is she doing that? What's happening? And she would freeze. That was her coping mechanisms to just freeze. And then she would just cry so much, but this like not able to breathe cry because she was so overwhelmed. And some kids would be like, don't do that, or would just walk off, but and I don't know why, because she was the third child, she had siblings, but for whatever reason, the way she's wired and the way she is, she just couldn't cope with other kids. So that was her fear that we had to kind of work through. And I just want to say where she's at now, because the two strategies we're talking about helped her so much. But on the weekend, she competed in a dancing competition. She got on stage for the first time ever. She was front and center, and the other kids had to follow her. And she did it, and with confidence, smile on her face. She was backstage without me, with only the coaches and her team.
Wow.
And seeing her up on stage, like rewind a couple of years ago,
Moment.
there was no way we would think that Ivy would be on stage, front and center, dancing with an audience. So she's come such a long way, and I know that it's the support that we have given her along the way and the not pushing her. And I've had to actually kind of push up against some people who have said to me, you know, you've just got to push her, you've just got to do this. But because of, I think,
That is
my
my
experience as a
other
teacher.
favorite topic, Angelique. Knowing
Yeah,
when
well,
not to push your child and to
yeah.
stand up for not pushing them, because there's so much pressure on mums. Don't be too, you can't treat them with kid gloves, and Well done.
maybe
Well done
we
for
could just,
standing up to it and doing what was
yeah,
right
and
for the child.
we could have another chat another time about that because I think it's really important. But I was very strong in my no,
Well,
she needs support, and there's a difference between wrapping them in cotton wool and
mhm.
supporting them.
Yeah.
So we supported her, and as I said, she's now thriving and going to school and happy. So just quickly, the other tool that we used was a visual calendar. And this is similar to the social story. So I printed off and laminated, being the teachers love laminators. But again, I know that your app does this too, but we printed off like an A3 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way to Sunday. And then on every day I would print out photos of the adults that she would see that day, whether it was her teachers or if she was going to my mum's house or whoever it was. And then a little picture of where they would be going, like it might be school or Nan's house or the library or whatever it was. But then I also printed off a photo of her and laminated it. And so we'd blue tack it to that day. And then the night before, she would move herself over to the next day and visually be able to see what was happening. And the reason I did that was because I would be putting her to bed at night and she would say to me in this panicked kind of voice, "What day is it tomorrow?" And I thought, this poor kid doesn't even know what day it is. Like we take that, for granted. And she would say, "What day is it?" And I'd say Tuesday. And she goes, "Is it a Kinder day?" And I thought, oh my gosh, like she's going to bed worried, having no idea of what's coming up the next day. So when we made this calendar together, when it was the most powerful to me was when I would be doing the dishes or whatever, and I'd see her go up to the fridge herself and point to the calendar and see who she was going to be seeing the next day. And I knew that she was thinking about it. She wanted to know what was happening tomorrow, and she would move herself over, and I'd see her kind of look and, do a little head nod and know who I'm going to see, what I'm going to do. It was almost instant. She stopped asking at night. She stopped calling out. She stopped being so panicked because she knew she had control over what was happening and she knew exactly what was happening the next day. And it was so incredibly powerful. And we actually used it for the entire year. Even though she was confident, she loved it so much, moving her little character over and seeing what was happening. And it was just so powerful.
You know what you did? You gave her predictability and you gave her routine and you gave her the autonomy to be able to read it for herself. Powerful combination.
Yeah,
powerful combination. So I use visual plans. I'm not quite at your amazing level, and you don't have to be, but you are next level. But we use visual plans because my kids couldn't read yet when I first started using them. So they're picture plans, and I use them in two ways. I use them to show an overview of the whole day, or like you did the whole week, so they can see what's coming. I find it particularly useful in school holidays to have a visual of the whole week so that you go, and I find it helps me as well because then I don't overschedule and I can actually see, well, hang on, we actually need some free time blocks here and schedule those in. And then I use them for routines. So we have a visual plan for morning routine and a visual plan for evening routine. And I actually let my kids, we've got some negotiables and some non-negotiables. And so I make the app all the list of things that they need to do and some extras, and then they can add in some extras, and then they choose the order. So they've got some autonomy. We might debate whether certain things need to be in or not. And then they've got a visual and I print it out. There's a little paw print for every day of the week and they get to tick it off as they go each day. And then you've also created a nice atmosphere in the house because in the morning, instead of saying, "Can you brush your teeth? Can you brush your teeth? Go and brush your teeth." I say, "What's next on your plan?" And they go, "Oh," and they're off before I can even say, "Great job." They're already doing it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And it helps, like that's clearly for the child, but my gosh, it helps as parents as well. Like we're doing this for our children, but it is actually for us too, like to be able to have your mornings, and they're actually helping by taking control of some of that stuff so that you're not having to constantly ask and do all these things and do all the stuff we have to do. It actually helps us as well, like giving the kids those responsibilities too.
And I think the other thing when we take a step back, and I know we're about to finish up, is that whether you're using a social, like reading a story with your child on your lap and you've got your gaze on the same page and you can follow their lead on what pictures are interesting to them, or you've made a visual plan and they've got the autonomy to do it, or you at the start are making the plan together. Yes, these are really helpful tools to reduce anxiety, but also, without realizing it, you're building connection with your
Yeah.
child. So that experience reading with your child a story about them and listening to their worries and talking them through, or the experience of having a happier morning in your house, getting out the door without the nagging and switching it around to what have you done, where are you up to, how can I help? It just changes the family dynamic, and bringing down stress in the home is going to have an effect on your kids, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think what's also really important to how you mentioned, it's important to give our kids autonomy. And I remember hearing someone, you know, when my kids were little, say, give them choices, but you decide what those choices are. So if the shoes they're going to wear to kinder is non-negotiable, then don't give them that option, but maybe say to them, you can choose what jumper you wear today, or you can choose which hat you're going to wear. So find something that suits you as a parent that you're happy for them to choose, and then so they think that they have autonomy and they have choice, and they do to a degree, but you're kind of still controlling what they choose, because there are some things that are not negotiable, like, or for example, what you're going to have for breakfast. Maybe don't say you can pick whatever you want for breakfast, but maybe you could say you can choose between, are you going to have this, this, or this, and you can pick. So they still feel in control of what they're choosing, but it's been kind of monitored or moderated by you as the parent to suit your family and you and what you actually need.
I find the same on weekends. You know, on the weekends, there's a few things that are not negotiable. We're going to do some exercise because I want some exercise. We're going to have a meal together and, you know, whatever. But it's like, well, when we go for a walk, do you want to go on your bike or your scooter? And when we're having lunch, do you want toasted sandwiches or an omelette? You know, and they can choose those bits, and then we make the day. And then it's less stressful for your child later because they know what's going to happen. It's predictable. They've been involved from the start.
Yeah.
Easier time.
Exactly.
Everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Thank you so much, Kathryn. So is there anything you wanted to say before we finish off, or anything else you've got that you wanted to add in?
Trust your gut. If you think that your child might be worried, or if you think that they're coming up for a big experience, even if they don't seem worried, if you think it's a big deal experience, you know, like a big transition, then, you know, prepare them for it. You wouldn't send an adult into a new job or to a party where they know nobody without giving them some background info. And that's the same as what we want to do for our kids. So whether you do that by making a story, playing it out with toys, giving them a visual plan, you know, it's a combination that's for the win. There's no silver bullet, but preparing your child in a few different ways will make such a world of difference to them. And also, as you touched on, just trust your gut. If your child, you know, some kids just need a little push and they'll get going, and others, giving them that push will actually backfire in a major way. And you need to trust yourself and do what's right for your child.
Yeah, and I just want to add in as well, like coming from a teacher's perspective, I hear a lot of parents say in the schoolyard, you know, oh, I don't want to hassle the teacher, I don't want to say anything. As a teacher, that is what we are there for. So if you are feeling like your child is, you know, needs a bit of extra support, you want some ideas, you want to share an idea of what you want to do, speak to the teacher. That's what they're there for. Don't feel bad that you're bugging them or you're, you know, being a pain. If it's for the benefit of your child, you know, give them a call, have a meeting with them, chat through it, because it's so important that you're on the same page. And if a teacher isn't brought to those things, if you're not bringing those their attention to it, they often might miss it, or they might not realize because they don't know what's going on at home. And often kids can seem completely happy at school, and then they get home and then they release it. So, so as parents, we're seeing our kids, so, you know, with all their emotions, but they could be keeping it all together at school, and the teacher may have no idea. So I really encourage people to speak to their educators or their teachers, just so they're on the same page, and they can really help support you as well.
Good one. Thanks, Angelique.
So you can, I'm going to obviously put your details in the comments as well. So if anyone would like to go on and have a look at your app and see what it's all about, and I really encourage people to do that because it really is such a powerful tool for our kids. So I'll put all the details there, but thank you so much for joining us, Kathryn. I really appreciate it.
My favourite topic, anytime.
Great. All right, well, let's chat again.
See you, Angelique.
Thanks, Kathryn. Bye.